Let's start. We're not going to have a shady side of the street, it looks like, because that's east-west right now. So we'll go walk down that way for about 4 or 5 blocks and talk about Cotton Row and Front Street and the riverfront from this angle. But first, let's introduce Ann Bateman. Let's put her on the spot. Come up here, Ann. Come on, Ann. Ann is the director of the Cotton Museum, which a former, you got to steal. I'll give somebody else this credit. Carol Perrell said this. It's the Graceland of Cotton. It's the Cotton Museum here. The Graceland of Cotton. Oh. And it opened, I guess, about 15 years ago. I can't remember the exact date. Here on the original floor of the Cotton Exchange. I think the whole building opened in 1924 is what we say. Used to be over at by Court Square at Madison and 2nd. They had 2 buildings over there in 1910. The Cotton Exchange building was there. Then they moved over to be closer to the cotton industry that had grown between post-Civil War on up. Now the Cotton Museum tells you the whole story from, let's say, the Eli Whitney and the Cotton Gin, the 1790s, up to the everything through the 19th century, the Rembert and Jedediah Prescott and Samuel Rembert with the cotton picker patent, the first one, right?
Yes, yes.
And then the whole cotton picking story to I guess crop dusting and in the 1930s Cotton Carnival being formed, all the society, the costumes and everything, some of the music of the Delta associated with cotton. They'd say this might be a quote out of Willy Bearden's book about cotton, about a mule. There's more mules in service in the Civil War than men. Think about how valuable the mules and horses were during the Civil War, okay? And all through the South, before we had tractors and everything. The first all mechanized cotton crop wasn't until 1943 down at Hobson Plantation in Clarksdale. Now that's a bed and breakfast called Shack Up Inn, right? But in Willie's book, I think there's a quote in Willie's book that you got very friendly with that mule. That mule would work with you for 10 years waiting for one opportunity to kick you, right? That would be real good, but if you get that one chance to kick you, he'd get it in 10 years. But the mules are very integral in producing cotton here. Of course, we were the hardwood capital before that time. We had 400 sawmills in the 19th century. Between 1880 and 1920, 70% of the cotton crop was within 200 miles of Memphis, so we're the cotton capital of the world, and all that went with it. And we'll talk about that up and down the street here, some of the buildings and businesses. What can you tell us about the Cotton Museum real quick? It's an educational institution as well with the other room. And
it is. This side is the former trading floor of the Cotton Exchange. It's been restored to what it looked like in about 1939. And cotton has always been your word type business. It still is today. We still have cotton merchants here in the building. They're still doing business. Cotton is still very important to the economy of Memphis. Cotton is the #1 value-added commodity in the United States today. We make more money off of cotton and cotton products than we do anything else. A lot of people don't realize that, and Memphis is still in the heart of it all. This museum has the history, the cultural impact, the economic impacts. He mentioned the crop dusting. That was Delta Airlines that started that. And then next door we have cotton as an agricultural commodity, seed to textile, and explain that whole process. So if y'all get a chance while you're here in Memphis, we'd love to have you visit.
A lot of them are Memphians.
Well,
and between 1803 and like 1937, cotton was the #1 export out of America. I've seen that stat before, so that's a huge stat right there. And, Memphis was founded on the river, but it was built on cotton and lumber.
Well, and we've got a marker in the sidewalk right here that talks about that for over 50 years, right here, this was the #1 spot market in the world, which spot market just meant the deal was done here. Money and cotton exchanged hands right here. It wasn't a futures market, it was a spot market.
On word of mouth, not in written contracts too. Exactly. Think about that, word of mouth. Also, if you look right up here, you see the #2 up on the building right here. You got the audio guides, right?
We do.
So got the audio guides. So we used to call them the zombie walk. We'd be sitting there at Front Street Deli and people be with these headphones on, be walking around like this. And they're looking for these numbers that you'll see. There's #3s over there. So they're looking around for the next number and it takes you on down. But there's like a bunch of people walking around like zombies looking for the numbers. But they're listening to the headphones of the audio guide Cotton Tour. So it's a great, if you're going to come there and do your own self-walking tour, it'll go down that way and all around. So.
Yep.
All right, so you're going to walk along with us? Okay.
Yes, I am.
That's your PSA, no charge, okay? Let's walk across the street. Front Street Deli, of course, our friend Lee Busby ran this for about 30 years. He passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. It was a one-man deli for a long time, but this is right here. Union Avenue in front, Cotton Row, extends basically from Gayoso House all the way down to about City Hall. It's called Cotton Row, Front Street. Front Street got its name because it was the front street to the river. There was no Riverside Drive or the railroad tracks. When Memphis got laid out in 1819, you had front, main, second, third, fourth on that way. And then you had, starting from Poplar, Poplar's named for the tree, our state tree that grows in all 95 counties. The first 5 presidents of the United States, Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Andrew Jackson gave us those names. He was one of our co-founders of Memphis. The next president in line was John Quincy Adams. We already had Adams, and he hated John Quincy Adams anyway because he had beaten him. So he named it Union because he believed a strong and federal union it shall and must be preserved. So it's not named Union because of the Civil War or the union of the two cities when we annexed in 1850. Andrew Jackson named it in 1819. That comes before 1850 and 1862, I think, right? Right. Okay, so Union was actually the south boundary of original Memphis, laid out in 1819. Started about the Pyramid, Wolf River, all the way to about 3rd Street, 1,309 acres, 362 lots. This is our southern boundary, and this section of buildings right here is one of the oldest sections in Memphis. In fact, the Memphis Tourism Building right here at 49 Union Avenue is the oldest commercial building in Memphis, built in 1848. That's in use right now, you see. And there's actually a hospital in the basement there during the Civil War. How about that? So this is actually called Howard's Row. It was our first shopping center in Memphis, by the way, almost 200 years ago, let's say that. And then from 1844 to 1850, there's a town called South Memphis that went from Union down to about the train stations. And Beale Street was the main street of South Memphis. It went down to the cobblestones, and a lot of those riverboats that would come in were afraid to stop down at the Beale Street area because the deckhands would get off. They'd been on the river for 10 days or 2 weeks, hadn't been near civilization or booze or women or drugs or anything, you know. They come up in the Beale Street in the 19th century. The captain might not ever see them again. You see, they're gone, they lose them. So Beale Street had a rowdy reputation. Of course, the railroads came in after the cobblestones got laid in the 1840s through 1890s. And the railroads came in, and this is all the industrial area of Memphis down to our south. So this is a perfect storm, let's say, right here. A river, railways, and roadways. The bridges got built starting in 1892. It just made it the right place in the center of the country for all this to happen right here. So you look at some of these buildings here dating back to the 1880s, 1890s. On the first floor, or the first level, would be the cotton factory offices, okay? Right here. The top floors, and you can see when you get away from some of these buildings, you can see some of the skylights on the roofs. They're northern-oriented skylights, so they took the cotton up to the 3rd floor because it didn't, in the 1880s, 1890s, 1900s, didn't have big electrical lights or anything. So they would class the cotton by the northern-oriented light up on those 3rd levels. And then the middle floors would be used for supportive industries like insurance or shipping or supplies or things like that. So that's kind of the combination of how these buildings were used all in here. You can still see several rows. Yeah, there's a parking lot there. Yeah, there's a parking lot there. The building down there with the white wall, that's where the Allenberg Cotton Company was. You got Barton Cotton on this side. The Joseph Oliver building right there. They made hard candy. They made coffee in there. It was a cold storage place back in the 19th century. And of course, like I say, you get back to Front Street Deli right here. You'll see a plaque right here about the firm back in 1993. You remember the movie The Firm? Anybody around Memphis during that time? You remember this? You weren't even born then. But the first scenes of the movie, it's 1:30, isn't it? Oh, it's 1:30. Close? How close am I? Okay. Tom Cruise came up Riverside, or Mitch McDear came up Riverside Drive, came into that parking garage right there, got out of his car, parked, and walked into the Union Planters building where Bendini, Lambert, and Locke were, right? But that was actually an International Harvester plant in Fraser where the Celt was built. He just walked into the front of the building. And you see in the middle of the movie where Holly Hunter comes and says, gives him his lunch and says the receipt is in the bag. Well, this is one of the buildings they used. That's where they came. They said he met him at the Front Street Deli. So there's a scene shot right here to the firm of him and Holly Hunter meeting up right in here. The copy machine was in this building. In fact, if you'll email me, I'll send you the firm tour. I did a 10-page tour of all the sites in Memphis for the firm that happened in the filming in 1993. We did 9 days on Mud Island with the monorail scenes in the museum. So I was involved in that. But this whole Cotton Row area, the roof of the Peabody, Beale Street with the flippers, a lot of Memphis was brought into the filming of that movie. And then later on, hey man, there's Michael.
How you doing?
How's Bear?
Been missing you.
All right. Tell Bear I said hi.
Best tour in the city.
Yeah, get out of here. And the Rainmaker, the Client, People versus Larry Flint, later on Walk the Line, Great Balls of Fire. So the firm kind of kicked off a whole lot of movies. Right now, Bluff City Law is being filmed in Memphis. So maybe we'll start getting more movies being filmed in Memphis. It's a great city for that. All right, the next time that light changes, let me know so we can cross the street, okay? Now, these buildings right here used to come all the way out to the street level right here. And we got so many automobiles in Memphis in the early part of the century. In 1904, we had 8 automobiles and the speed limit was 8 miles an hour, okay? Hold that thought, we're gonna cross the street. Come on. Now, if you look at this building right here, most of these buildings are a little bit wider. See how narrow that Front Street Deli is and the old building behind it? Well, we got so many automobiles here. Like I said, 1904, 8 automobiles. 1910, there was 1,000. 1913, there were 6,000. 1920, there was 19,000. So we had the street widening ordinance in 1922. We started paving our streets. And along Front Street here, they shaved off the front of these buildings, the front half of these buildings. They used to be 3 windows wide right there. There used to be a picture in Front Street Deli. They were taking a picture of a brand new model car, 1922 car right here. And that was the backdrop to that, showing you the 3 windows there. That was one of the buildings affected by the street widening ordinance in 1922, believe it or not. Union Avenue is 45 feet wide right here. Monroe's 60 feet wide. Court Avenue's 80 feet wide, and I'll tell you why later on when we get down there. But when you get past 2nd Street, you'll see how much further the Peabody's offset. It had to set off because the street widening ordinance in 1922, it's wider there, you see. And there's a reason later on. All right, let's go this way. Here's a great stretch of building. Again, there's not a single building on this street that has its original purpose in it. Think about it. Not even the Cotton Exchange building, because it's Cotton Exchange. All these buildings have been repurposed into other offices or residential or businesses several times over in the last century. Let's let this truck come by. Right here at 60th out front, you might have Blues Alley. If you remember the name Blues Alley, back in the 70s and 80s, the Saverins of Blues Alley. Okay, y'all been there? Prince Mongo's Planet here. King Mongo, Prince Mongo's Planet. Great pizza, great pool tables, but a lot of weird things going on in there. That's now the home of Memphis in May. Anybody heard of Memphis in May? Opened in 1977, the first year. And its mission is to promote Memphis around the world, and they honor a foreign country every year. The first year was Japan. There was one Japanese business in the state of Tennessee in 1977 when Lyman Aldrich went to that Japanese person down in Whitehaven area. They got in touch with the ambassador and all this. Now there's over 400 industries in the state of Tennessee. Sharp manufacturing by the Business Exchange and Cultural Exchange of that. Japan's been honored twice, by the way, by Memphis in May. So they started honoring a foreign country every year. This year, obviously, it was Memphis and Shelby County on the bicentennial, the 200th year of Memphis and Shelby County. So they kind of went off mission a little bit, but that's done and over. I don't know who the country is next year. They'll announce that in August, but it'll be another country. They rotate continents around: Africa, Europe, Asia, all that. So expect one from Africa, I'll say, because it was Czech Republic the year before that. I think Canada the year before that. Colombia the year before that, Costa Rica the year before that. So it's about time to get back to Africa if you really want to think that out, you know. But Memphis in May has grown and grown and grown. The barbecue started in the parking lot of the Orpheum Theater. Think about that, 27 teams in 1977. Sunset Symphony was out at 8-acre Tom Lee Park. Beale Street Music Festival was on little stages up and down Beale Street until they expanded Tom Lee Park. Now it's one of the largest festivals of its kind in the country. It wins it's won hundreds of awards in the International Festivals Association. It's honored over 40 foreign countries. So it has about $132 million annual economic impact, okay, in our community. Hotels, room nights, tourism. Those middle 2 weeks or first and third week of May each year is the busiest weeks in downtown Memphis. Restaurant, hotel, trolley, every measure, carriage rides, everything, every measurement is our biggest 2 weeks. So we got to be somewhat supportive and protective of Memphis in May while we look at the changing style of our whole downtown and riverfront. 30 years ago, there was more people living in jail in downtown Memphis than living residentially. So you got to think how much we've changed, and you got to consider that. This area here between Union Avenue all the way down to the pyramid. You're not the pyramid, are you? Yeah. Me, Carol Coletta, she's a friend of mine.
Hey,
how you doing? We're filming for Downtown Memphis Commission.
Oh, good.
We're talking about you, Carol. She's with Memphis Riverfronts Park Partnership. She was my boss at Memphis Rock and Soul Museum back 30 years ago, 20 years ago. So we're friends. She lives right over here. We'll do Union Avenue on Saturday, and we'll talk about Jack Tucker, who came in that building over there at 45 Union Avenue. Again, there was more people living in jail in downtown Memphis during that time, and Jack had done rehab of buildings in Tunisia during the Peace Corps in the 1960s. So he comes to Memphis in the 1970s and starts rehabbing old warehouses in the condos and apartments downtown. He's known as the father of downtown living. You want to talk about the Sports Hall of Fame?
You're a sight for sure.
All right, Pierre, come here.
Welcome
Pierre,
back.
tell us about the Sports Hall of Fame real quick.
All right, so
Pierre from the Sports Hall of Fame used to be at the convention center.
there is a, what's up, Willie?
Hey, man.
So
Talk.
there is a Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. There is not a Nashville Hall of Fame, but there will be a Memphis Sports Hall of Fame. A lot of states have sports halls of fame, some cities, but Memphis doesn't. We have a rich, rich sports history, and we're finally this year, as part of our 200th birthday, celebrating the athletes that were
You
made
pointing
such
at
a
me?
contribution.
Athletes?
Well, one of them, yeah. That celebrating the athletes that made such a contribution to our sports history. Tim McCarver, Penny Hardaway, you might know. Keith Lee played basketball for University of Memphis. We had several gold medalists, one equestrian, several track athletes that are in the Sports Hall of Fame. There's 22
Larry Finch.
overall. So
Melanie Stevens get in there? Equestrian, Melanie Stevens?
Melanie Smith Taylor,
Okay. That was Taylor.
she won the gold in horseback
84
jumping. So,
equestrian. She's out of
1984
Germantown.
in Los
We've
Angeles.
had 6 gold medal Olympians from Memphis. Will you be the 7th? No? I mean, one in boxing, Kennedy McKinney, Rochelle Stevens in track and field, Melanie Smith, Anthony Hardaway, Nikki McCrae, and Cindy Parlow.
Cindy Parlow.
Cindy Parlow, soccer. Nikki McCrae, twice. Nikki McCrae, twice. Somebody else was twice, too. I did a little study of them. Anyway.
Nikki
6.
McCrae, Rochelle
Okay.
Stevens.
So that's going to open at AutoZone Park sometime later on this year
Hopefully
and grow, have a
before the
new
end of the
class
year.
every year. So this is another new museum in downtown Memphis.
Yeah, it's another
21.
one of our bicentennial projects.
Pierre,
Happy birthday to Memphis.
and he's an LSU Tiger, okay?
right.
Lives in High Point Terrace. He's okay, and he cooks.
And where are you guys from? Where are they?
I was just Memphis. We're doing a walk. Willie's filming.
Fantastic. All right.
Willie's filming this for Downtown Memphis Commission. We're going to do
Awesome.
about 25
Awesome.
hours of me being digitized.
All right.
And you're on it.
That's
Goodbye,
the,
Pierre. Be nice to Pierre. Be looking for that. You met him. He signs autographs too. He's a good guy. All right, let's go. Union Avenue. So Jack Tucker came, and he's known as the father of downtown living. He called that the Timpani Building because he was banging the drum for downtown. Peabody Hotel's closed. Bill Street's fenced off. Orpheum's closed. Nothing's happening downtown. And Jack was building residential. And big trucks are loud. So let's go this way. Right here, General Washburn's escape alley. The sign's not up because of construction, I guess. But if you go back to the Civil War, 1864, there's a raid on Memphis. Forrest wanted to capture 3 generals, release some horses, release some Confederate prisoners. So he got down by AutoZone Park. It wasn't there at the time. That's where General Washburn, one of the 3 generals for the Union, was staying. He jumped out of his window and ran up this alley in his nightshirt to get to Fort Pickering. Okay, and escaped that. But General Forrest captured his blue uniform. Mrs. Washburn wasn't too happy with the general for abandoning her. So he gave up the blue uniform, she did, and he had it cleaned up and pressed and sent back to him the next day, like in the chivalry of Civil War. Not to be outdone, General Washburn knew Forrest Taylor in Memphis. Everybody knew everybody, so they knew his measurements, so he had a gray uniform made for him and sent back to him the next day. So Forrest was kind of doing a and I'm sure Forrest said that, but Washburn was kind of like back at you. And that was just the chivalry of Civil War. General Forrest's brother actually rode his horse into the lobby of the Gayosa Hotel. That's a different Gayosa Hotel, trying to capture another General Hulbert, and I think he had Blackledge. So this is known as General Washburn's escape alley. General Cadwallader C. Washburn later on went to be the governor of Wisconsin, and he also named General Mills, because he was a general in the Civil War. So when you eat your Cheerios tomorrow, you think about General Washburn running up this alley by the Rendezvous in his nightshirt, Rendezvous wasn't here then, to escape capture. And that's what that alley tells you right there. If you go right into that alley that goes north-south right there, Center Alley, from the steakhouse all the way down to Raymond J's building there, that is the treasure trove for manhole covers. On Saturday, we'll do an extensive tour of manhole covers here and their ornateness. We might mention a couple along the way here if we can find them. But that is the treasure trove of manhole covers right there, believe me, okay? All right, let's go down here. You'll still see some of the names of the businesses. Fulton and Sons is up here from 80 to 100 years ago. Cotton merchants, cotton factors. Mid-South Cotton Growers Association formed in the 1930s, along with, say, the Cotton Carnival Association, and then since we're a segregated city, the Cotton Makers Jubilee for all those years. See how much wider Monroe Avenue is? Again, it's 60 feet wide. Court Avenue is 80 feet wide, and the reason why they're wider, Monroe ended at Riverside Drive and they go all the way down to the cobblestones. Beale Street did, Monroe Landing did, and Court did. And when they built the sidewalk on Riverside Drive in 2002, we lost the access to the cobblestones from Beale and Court, and this is the only access in. Now back 150 years ago, 120 years ago, when the mule wagons were bringing the cotton up from the steamboats, they couldn't just come straight up like this, because those cotton bales weigh like 500 pounds. They called them snakes or something, didn't they? Big old bales you see on the sidewalks here, and lint flying everywhere. So they had to zigzag back and forth. They had to tack back and forth. So they made these streets wider so the cotton could come up zigzagging back and forth to get up to Front Street. It's a 30-foot climb in 300 feet. That's like a 10-to-1 slope. That's a pretty steep slope to pull up a ton of cotton. You know, you see the little landing right there too. Now this parking garage was built in 1955 from Union Avenue down to the Pyramid. These were 19 acres laid out by our city founders, known as the Promenade, and to be used for public use only. Well, the public usages besides open land, there was parkland here. It sloped down like this. But in 1885, the Customs House, Courthouse, and Post Office came in. 1893, the library. 1895, the fire station. 1955, this garage and the other garage. Confederate Park in 1907. We'll talk about those individually when we get down there. Those were all public use, you see. Public fire station, public library, public customs house, okay? Now, and that's always been tried a few times as far as developing this for office buildings or whatever. But this was a park until 1955. You could stand here at Front Street and see the Mississippi River. You know, same thing over at Confederate Park too. You can kind of see the grass back behind us here. You can see the red sandstone right here on the wall. Imagine about a four-story tall Disney-like castle right here. If you look, gosh, I think there's a project opening up this weekend or a reception called Newman to Now, right? There was a famous, you know, we've had great photographers in Memphis, including Willy Bearden, by the way. But if you think of Ernest Withers and the Hooks brothers and Bob Williams and on and on and on, Gary Walpole, I guess we got to say that, right? But Don Newman, who Emily here is with the Newman to Now project, she got a grant with through Memphis Heritage, I guess, the Tennessee Humanities Tennessee grant for a project to help chronicle the Don Newman collection. If you've been to the Arcade Restaurant or Lincoln American Tower, you've seen those big photo murals on the wall. Don Newman in the 40s and 50s, and this is why we're doing this project today, is back in, let's go back to 1890. Somebody took a picture of Front Street here in the 1890s. You got them on your walls at the Cotton Museum, or in the 1920s. And in the 1940s and 50s, it was Don Newman. Don Newman carried an 80-pound tripod. Willie, how much does that weigh? 2 pounds?
Maybe a pound.
80-pound tripod, 25-pound camera, little black sheet over his head, probably wearing a suit and tie, in July weather, taking those great pictures you see of Lincoln American Tower and the Steric Building and the street scenes of Main Street. You see in these places. And so Emily, come here real quick. Come forward real quick and talk for a second. And we're doing a reception at 3 o'clock Saturday at Howard Hall at Madison and Jefferson of the project that you wanted to tell them how it was.
Yeah, it's sort of a then and now comparison of Don Newman's and some contemporary photographs by Gary Walpole of different sites, including the Cossett Library and the Customs.
You'll see what it was then, the big Disneyland castle here as a library.
And of course, one of the coolest components is that it has a virtual walking tour with Jimmy. We went around to the sites, and he has a little bit of a talk in front of each one. And then we've got newspaper articles and everything, and it's a cool interactive website that's fully going to be used for educational purposes in schools and so on.
And Kelly Hatton from Shelby County Schools
is involved in helping coordinate
curriculum
with the teachers for that. Yeah.
That'll happen this fall, right?
Yes.
So how about that? Newmanton now, be looking for that. Come 3 o'clock Saturday to Howard Hall.
It'll be fun. We have some activities.
Right at Madison and East Parkway or Jefferson. It's a big old Memphis Heritage Office. We're very thankful to June West for helping coordinate that too.
Yeah.
And all the Nikki Newberger and all the other team members.
Yeah, we had a great team working on it. Yeah, come on Saturday, 3 o'clock after Jimmy's walking tour. You can get lots of history in one day. It'll be fantastic.
They probably have wine there too. They always do a Memphis Heritage. The wine never stops at Memphis Heritage. Emily Cohen, you didn't know you had a producer here, did you? See? And got the whole staff with her here too, you see. Right here, the Shrine Building, built in 1913. Of course, the Shriners do a lot for burns and children and cleft palates and all that stuff. Just a great building here. It's residential now, condos and apartments. Some of those scenes from The Firm were filmed. The last scenes of The Firm were filmed there. When Mitch McDear comes to meet with the Moralto family, they weren't in the Peabody Hotel. Those films have been filmed up there in Ward Archer's apartment, Ward Archer Jr. And one of the last scenes, when Tom Hanks in Castaway, when he comes back and they've been to the FedEx, they have the little reception for him. If you look out you look in the back, the windows show out from that room up there too. So it's been used quite a few with the images of Memphis behind it in movies. Like with Don Newman in the photographs, what Willie does with all his, how many 10,000 pictures you're photographing or something, Willie, of all sorts of scenes. We're freezing this in 2019 like somebody did in 1819, except we're digitizing it in black and white pictures. And it's just, we want it to be a resource because 30 or 40, 50 years from now, somebody's going to look back at this and see what we were then. All right, let's go this way. So imagine here, again, a big Disney-like castle built in 1893. By the 1950s, for two reasons, they say, well, some of that mortar between those big granite blocks or crystallizing or whatever is getting unstructurally sound. Plus, we want a new modern, mid-century modern type library, so the old Disney castle got torn down. Again, when you see the Newman pictures, you're going to look at both these two buildings here and go, wow. Because there used to be, the Customs House used to be two 5-story towers on it. This portion you see built around the Customs House was built in the 1920s, a wraparound north, east, and south, you see. So 1959, this became the modern building. The Cossett Library was founded here. And now it's being reimagined as a part of this Fourth Bluff whole concept to be a community room, other events. Possibly the Brooks Museum might move here from Overland Park. More than possibly, but that's the area they're looking for, the Brooks Museum to go in there. So you're talking about reimagining this whole Bluff area here over the next 5 to 10 years. Stay tuned, okay? All right, let's go this way. This is Floyd Alley. Floyd was a meat man in the alley. That's how the guy got the name. But if you remember the movie The Firm, and towards the end of the movie, Mitch McDear gets kind of caught by his own law firm, so he starts running around the office. He jumps out a window, right, into a cotton truck. Well, it was his stunt double. We saw more of his stunt double than anything else, okay? This last window here on the bottom is the one he jumped out into the cotton truck right there. So that's what. This is the parking garage he came into. Again, they walked right in to the building right there, and then boom, you're in Frazier. You're at the International Harvester Plant. All right, let's take a time out here and let this guy walk through us. So we had another question about the monorail scenes on Mud Island. Now, I was general manager at the time, and Sidney Pollack, or Michael Hausman, the producer, came to me and said, if you see in the movie how the monorail, Tom Cruise is coming back from the museum and the Nordic guys chasing him is going across in the other monorail car, and they see in the middle, they pass. Tom Cruise doesn't see the Nordic. We are at a bus stop.
Please don't get on the bus, okay?
Yeah, y'all don't get on the bus. Now, they want it to where they cross in the middle and then both cars come back in at the same time to the east station. Well, that is the world's only curved single cable underhanging monorail, okay? It's all one cable about 3,500 feet long. Both cars are attached to the same cable. Now they go side by side. Well, one goes side by side, it goes a different length each time, so the cable has to compensate each time. In the summertime, the cable gets hot and expands. In the wintertime, the cable gets cold and contracts, so it has to be manually brought in sometimes, you see, or slowed down coming in so they come in too hard. So I told Mr. Pollock, I said, look, there's too much tension on that cable to cut the cable. We can't do that. He looks at me and goes, Sonny boy, do you know how much tension there is on me to finish this movie? And I said, you can do it in Hollywood, you can't do it in Memphis. So if you watch the movie, you see they cross in the movie. Then all of a sudden, the next scene, here's just this guy, there's a helicopter, you can see the shadow of the helicopter in the harbor. Here's this guy running on the walk bridge above it. So the Nordic has gotten out of a moving monorail, through the hatch in the roof, through a manhole cover in the stationary bridge, somehow lined up and got through there as that thing's moving at 5 miles an hour, right? Running, catching up with Tom Cruise. Physically, you can't do that in Memphis. You can do it in Hollywood because the monorails come over. Now they're 1,800 feet apart, and he's run 1,800 feet in 5 seconds. That's how to help. Jimmy Ogle 1, Sidney Pollock 0 is what I say. He died about 2 years ago. I keep on thinking of him all the time, but it was a lot of fun. The first time we went and saw that movie, because we were all gaga over the Hollywood movie here, and Tom Cruise and Gene Hackman, all the guys, Wilford Brimley. We had to, the first time we were watching all the places it was being filmed in Memphis on Front Street and the house in Tuckahoe and the roof of the Peabody, and whose law offices they're in. They had the portraits of the dead lawyers from Bendini, Lambert, and Locke, and one of them was Bill Gibbons. You know, his actual, he's still alive to this day, but they're using local people's pictures as portraits, you know. And so we didn't know what the movie was about the first time. We had to go back and watch it to see what the movie was about. You know, we're kids, you know. It was fun. This was Union Planters Bank here. It's now Metro 67 residential. Union Planters left about 20 years ago, went out to East Memphis. You can see the little frame up there on top of the parking garage. That's a heliport because William Matthews used to fly his helicopter in from Rossville, Tennessee and land there. There's an underground walkway to get from the parking garage into where the bank vaults are there. This is 2 buildings built. The north side was built in 1923. The south side was built, 1913. The south side in 1923. Okay, right here, this building, when we go around to the back, the center portion was built in 1885. The outer portion was built in the 1920s. You'll see that from the back side in just a minute. And when you go over to Main Street, the 10 South Main building right through this alley right here, the south side was built in 1906 and the north side 1908 and the north side 1918, 10 years apart. That's 2 buildings in one there too. So in 3 blocks here, 3 buildings are built like 10 or 20 years apart. They look like the same building. That's a weird oddity of downtown right there. Let's go up to here. Look right here. See what this says on the top of this? From this point, distance from Memphis measured, or distance from Memphis measured from this point. Come on around this way, you can see. And then look on the back side, it says 274 feet sea level. Y'all know what that means now, don't you? The ones that went on the first tour. It says it right on the back here. This was placed here, I think, what, 1923? Is that what it says by the Engineers Club? 1926. 1926. But this, though, when you think about it, when you're coming in from Nashville, you get out there at Sycamore View and it says 12 miles to Memphis. You're already in Memphis, right? Coming from the east. When you come from the south, when you come from the north, and you come from the west, zero's got to be one spot, otherwise the measurements are going to be different. So basically every city has a 0 milestone, usually in the downtown area, right by a governmental building. So that's what this marks right here. North, south, east, west. This is 0 milestone. Now Memphis actually began down about where the pyramid area is, where the Gayoso Bayou and the Wolf River and the Mississippi River all came in. All the boats would come into there in the low-lying land. And we grew along the riverfront with transportation. We built the cobblestones, the railroads, and went from north to south, all along the riverfront, South Memphis, Fort Pickering, all the way down to the lower bridges. Well, and in 1899, we annexed all the way out to about where the Olden Park area is. That's when we started our east-west grid. We turned our back on the river at that time, 1899. So by 1905, we started annexing, in 1909, Binghamton, Idlewild area, near the fairgrounds, 1919, gosh, almost 1919 or 1929 all the way out to Goodlet. So in 1905, we had annexed a bunch of cities. A lot of them had the same street names like Tennessee and Memphis, or first, second, and third down here. So what they did in 1905, they brought the zero north-south line to Madison Avenue right here. So you see you got south front this way, north front this way, all the way out to Parkway, basically all the way out to East High School, then Walnut Grove, your north-south dividing line. Well, in the 1906, 1907, all these people along these streets didn't want to change their street addresses, their numbers. It cost them money on their stationery and invoicing and that. So they refused to do it. So the way the government got the people to change their addresses, the federal post office cannot not knowingly deliver mail to a wrong address. So they stopped delivering the mail. So people couldn't get the mail until they changed their address to cooperate. That's how they got people to cooperate. So if you look, if you're researching old buildings in the 1890s, 1880s, early 1900s, you'll see the address change in 1905, that same building. You can trace it from the street, counting the buildings up, to see the new numbers and stuff. You read Paul Koppich's book, he has old numbering system and stuff like that, and that's very helpful to know. That's one of the weird things about Memphis. There's the old 1910, the Green Top building, that is the Exchange building, opened 1910. Cotton Exchange used to be there. The yellow building down past it's the Steric building. 1930, when it was built, it was the tallest building in the entire South. When it was built, the last 20-plus story skyscraper built in Memphis for 34 years because of the Depression and World War II, until the First Tennessee Bank building opened in 1964. The tallest building in Memphis is 100 North Main building in 1965, okay, 421 feet tall. The Falls building right here was built in 1912 exclusively for cotton merchants. Falls is buried in Elmwood Cemetery. That's how big the cotton business was. This whole 12-story building is exclusively for cotton people. On the top floor, they had the Alaskan Roof Garden. You've heard of the Peabody Skyway Room or the Balinese Ballroom. Well, up here you had the Alaskan Roof Garden. And in 1916, W.C. Handy premiered the St. Louis Blues out of that ballroom right there in that building. Raymond James building's on the old site of the former Hotel King Cotton. It got imploded in 1984. That opened 1987. It's like the third tallest building in Memphis. Clark Tower is number 2. Let's see, we got this, we got that, and here we got the World War II and Korean memorial right here. You see this marble right here in granite. It kept on getting hit. Cars would miss this stoplight and run into it. So they had to keep on repairing it. Or it was a big fountain with a real modern sculpture in it, too modern for its time apparently. Some people objected to that, but also fraternities would come and drop detergent here and make the place sud all up, or bums would take a bath in it. So they finally took the fountain out and started planting it in 2010. Now, this opened, we're going to go around behind back to end the tour, but this opened in 1885 as the federal United States Customs House, Courthouse, and Post Office, okay, all in one building here. Not this building you see right here. It's another building inside this building. Had 2 5-story towers, a very grand building. Hey, dude, how you doing? All right. $20 check right there, man. Convention and Visitors Bureau. They're walking all over the place. So, back in the 1960s, the new federal building was built down here in Civic Center Plaza. So the federal courthouse goes there. In the 1960s, the Custom House goes out to the new Memphis International Airport. So that leaves only the post office here and about 20% of the building for about 30 years, a very underutilized building, okay? And so by the late, like 2006, 2007, there's a movement to move the University of Memphis Law School down here. So the post office went over to Main and Peabody Place, and the University of Memphis Law School opened here in January 2010. And a couple years ago, it got voted the best law school facilities in the country, right here. So when you go around to the back side, you'll see where it's two buildings in one. You actually go into a lobby to go into another lobby. And there's free tours here when school is in session at noon, Monday through Friday, given by law students of the building. So I encourage you to go in there and take a free tour in there, okay? Let's walk out this way. So here's the first building right here. Again, when you look at the Newman to now pictures, you'll see that building with the 5-story tall turrets on both sides on the Front Street side. They got torn down, and this wraparound north, east, and south came around. You can look over here at the library and see some of that. That's a 1920s addition to the library there that's still staying. But that's the red sandstone. Imagine like a 4-story Disney-like castle with big round turrets there in red sandstone. How grand that was. I bring you back here because this is one of the best views of the whole riverfront right here. Got the benches over here. Again, those are the National Ornamental Metal Museum benches they made with the gar as the legs and the Memphis in them. You can see the lower bridges. You can see the barge tow. Those barges are empty. See how smart I am with my x-ray vision? See how high they are out of the water? If they were full, they'd be 10 feet deep in the water. I mean, 10 feet deep in the water. You only see the top part of them. So they're empty going back upriver right now. One barge has the same capacity of 15 train cars and 58 semi-trucks, okay? Now, coming up this August 18th, it'll be the 100th anniversary when the state of Tennessee legislature voted the last state that could vote. Now think about this, in 1848, some women up in New York got the idea that women ought to have the right to vote. Does that sit well with this group here today? What with them? Of course, they're up in New York, you know, so they're high-minded people up in New York. 72 years it took. That's a lot of gridlock in Washington, D.C., isn't it? 72 years, through the Civil War, through Yellow Fever, through World War I. If you read the story of the women's suffrage movement in this country, a very big part of it took place in Memphis and obviously the state of Tennessee. So come August 18th of this year, there'll be a memorial in this property right here. If you've been to Nashville to Centennial Park or up to Knoxville to Market Square, we have the suffrage memorials there that Alan LaQuire, the sculptor, did. Well, our local friend Paula Casey is getting this all done. We're going to dedicate it right here, August 18th. The men and women of Shelby County and Memphis that led to keeping that movement alive in the 1880s, 1890s, kept the legislation alive in the Tennessee legislature in 1918, 1919, so they could get a vote 100 years ago. So what happened, if you know your civics class, let's see, it's the 19th Amendment, right? Right? Okay. 14th Amendment or 15th Amendment was black men got the right to vote after the Civil War in 1870. Not black women or white women, right? Went until 1920. 1924, Native Americans. So think about how people got the right to vote, just like the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 and how our immigration laws are done and things we're learning from our historical markers. So 1919, Congress passes women gets the right to vote, but it takes ratification. If you know your civics class, right? You know, it takes ratification of, 75% of the states, right? So we had 48 states at the time, 36 have to ratify. 3 states did not even consider it. Not worthy. 9 states voted no. 35 states had voted yes, and 1 state hadn't voted yet. Tennessee. August 18th, it passed by 1 vote in the state of Tennessee. Harry Burns' mother called him the night before and said, "You better vote right tomorrow, young man." He voted right because his mom had passed by 1 vote in the state of Tennessee, August 18th, 1919. So August 18th, 2019, Paula, the sculptor, will be dedicated here. We want to invite you back. It'll be in the late afternoon or early evening because she wants to, it's going to have some LED lights with it and everything. So that's going to happen here. I'll be back in town for that. And probably the day before, on August 17th, we're going to dedicate a historical marker for WHER that same weekend, since it's the first all-female radio station in America, down at 972 South 3rd Street, where the third Holiday Inn ever was. We're going to do that on the same weekend. Make it a women's weekend in Memphis, if we want to say about that for women's history. But it's men and women. Like Joe Hanover was a representative from Memphis that actually kept that legislation alive, so it could be voted on. Because people are trying to kill it. You know, they want it to happen, the last state, but it happened. In 1920, I think it finally got passed or signed in the legislation in 1920. Now, WHER, I mentioned that. Last year, or 2 years ago, our city did a big study on the African-American heritage in Memphis. You know, we've had white man's history written by white men, and I'm a white man. I can say that, can't I? Can't I?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I can say that. And did you look at that downriver tow going, see how full it is, see how low the barges are in the water with that gravel? So there's your great example, upriver tow, empty, getting up there by September so they can get all that grain. Those are called hopper barges with the covers on them. They'll put grain in there, coming from Missouri, Illinois. They'll come back downriver. Here's downriver gravel going down right there. That's a lot of heavy gravel right there, folks. There's how the economy works, very slowly on the river right there, you know. And see how much faster he is going downriver than going upriver? Twice as fast. Downriver gets the right of way, by the way, too. So there's your good example of river navigation, Camille. There's gonna be a pop quiz. So Memphis community development of the city government did this whole Memphis Heritage area behind Beale Street, east of South Main to Crump, the 38126 area code. Basically from the Civil War days on up, the sharecroppers and free slaves came in the Beale Street area. Beale Street was the main street of Black Memphis, like I said. And it's all these great heritage things here for African American history. We haven't covered African American history. My deal about our history is we add to our history by adding, not by subtracting. We need to cover all our history because there's no city in America that tells the story of American history better than Memphis, Tennessee, good, bad, or ugly. Okay, and you got to cover the ugly too, to cover it all. You don't have to, but it's better to do it that way. Whether it's slavery, whether it's lynchings, whether it's crime, and what other things we do. We've done it all. The great music we've done, that's incredible what our music history is. Our cotton history is incredible, you know, our hardwood, our river, everything. So they did a great job with that heritage trail. They got things going on there. And that inspired me to go around town and look for every place I could find that has a woman's name on it. Since my audience is dominantly women right now, I'm gonna preach to the choir for a minute, you know. But, and like Elma Roane Fieldhouse at University of Memphis, or Cornelia Crenshaw Library, or Margaret Polk statue, the Memphis Belle, or there's 3 brass stars at the Orpheum Theater of Memphians, women. Callan Asperian, Sybil Shepherd, and Marguerite Piazza. There's 2 duck feet at the Peabody Hotel. Pat Kirkpatrick, Lynn Sittler. You see, there's 21 brass notes on Beale Street of Memphis women. Joyce Cobb, Memphis Minnie, Judy Pizer, all up and down Beale Street. See, there's streets, there's schools, historical markers. Ida B. Wells is in 6 different murals around town, you know. I found over 200 names, so I took it to Memphis Area Women's Council, and now Women of Achievement's been going for 35 years. They've been selecting 7 people for 35 years into this Women of Achievement. Just go to womenofAchievement.org, and you'll see all these great women who've done things, and they're not necessarily all of them got their names on buildings or streets or schools or made endowments to people because they're rich. There are other great accomplishments, scientists and teachers and everything. Lucy Campbell was a teacher at Booker T. Washington High School, wrote over 80 gospel hymns. She's what to religious music, what W.C. Handy is to the blues. Lucy Elementary School is named for her in Fraser. So people like that. So we have a whole brochure out now in the history trail, Women of Achievement, a Memphis Women's Legacy Trail, I think is what it's called as well. So this year is our Year of the Woman. We're through Deborah Clubb and Memphis Area Women's Council and Paula Casey with the Suffrage Memorial. We're doing more this year than ever for women in Memphis history, just like 2 years ago with the MLK 50 build-up with African American history. And we got to keep that planing on up to catch up, to play catch up on our history without tearing too much of the white man history down. Because it all goes together. It takes this very interesting story here in Memphis. No city in America can compare it to. I got 150 hours in my head to prove it's what I say, you know. Be glad to go on a talk show and, well, I'll challenge Atlanta and challenge Chicago. Come on, let's sit down and start throwing things out. You know, the best news story we learned this year, Willie, was about Barton Collier, wasn't it? Willie never heard of Barton Collier. How many of y'all heard of Barton Collier? Oh, you better say. He dropped out of Market Street School in age 16. That was a school down here in the Pinch District, okay? And he started working for the railroad, and then he got a contract putting gas in the lamps, the gas lamps for the street lights downtown. This is in the 1880s, 1890s. And then he got bought into a print shop, owned half a print shop, and streetcars started coming into Memphis. So he started making, you've heard of this. If you paid attention at Colonial Middle School. Okay. 11-inch by 21-inch advertisements in streetcars. And he went up to Chicago to Mr. Wrigley and got all the chewing gum advertising for the streetcars in Chicago. He built this empire, 70 cities, 35 states, 21,000 streetcars, 40 million visits or viewers a day. He became the father of streetcar advertising out of Memphis. You ever heard of him? Baron Collier. He also was one of the co-founders of the Boy Scouts of America. He was one of the co-founders of Interpol, the International Police Organization. Okay, he built Luna Park up there by Coney Island. He bought land in Florida. Collier County's named for him in Florida. But in my world, the most important thing he did is he invented the yellow stripe and the white stripe on the highways out of Memphis, Tennessee. Did you know that? Anybody here besides Willie and Mr. Colonial, he heard this story a month ago. Somebody had to, there's a yellow stripe down there, there's a white stripe. Somebody had to do that. It came out of Memphis, Tennessee, just like Holiday Inns did, and Auto Shack, and Piggly Wiggly, you know, and some of the medical advances, and all the music, all the great things we've given this, you know, world, really, out of Memphis. So we'll close up right here. Is that okay with everybody? We're going to take a few questions. I got to get out to the archives for a meeting. Tomorrow now at 11 o'clock we'll be at Westie's for the Pinch District. 1 o'clock we'll be at the clock tower in front of City Hall for Civic Center Plaza, Adams Avenue. Saturday, 11 o'clock, Union Avenue. 1 o'clock the Orpheum for Beale Street. Okay? And 3 o'clock everybody's invited Saturday to 2282 Madison Avenue at Madison and Jefferson, the big old house there, Howard Hall, Memphis Heritage. A lot of free wine. Newman the Now. I guess you'll have some type of ceremony there. We'll talk, we'll show things, but you'll get to meet. And again, Shelby County Schools, Kelly Hatton, if you know Kelly. Okay, well, this is going to be part of the Shelby County Schools curriculum. She's doing the visual arts. Okay. Visual arts instructor for all the schools. I had her on the radio, by the way.
What's that?
I had Kelly on the radio in May when I was in town. She talked about this at her airport. She's the one that does when the school students do the artwork, and they go out to do it at the airport, you know. She coordinates that as well, and it stays in the airport for the year in the corridors too. So, good programs there. Okay. All right. Thank you for coming. Let's everybody clap. Well, thank you for coming on. Come on. Willie's got to get that in.